Our job is to do all we can to support the victim and not reward the aggression.
Україна повинна точно знати, коли закінчиться війна, то для всієї території України будуть гарантії безпеки, щоб не почалось знов вторгнення. Ось це головне. І в цьому не може бути інших тлумачень.
Le premier, c'est pour que cette paix soit durable pour l'Ukraine et qu'à nouveau, elle n'ait pas une agression comme en 2014 et 2022.
While Russian missiles keep hitting Ukrainian cities, another battle is happening in hotel rooms and conference halls. In Brussels, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas warns that pressure is shifting onto the victim, Ukraine, to accept concessions. In Paris, President Zelensky stands next to Emmanuel Macron, backing an American peace push led by Donald Trump's envoy, but insisting on sovereignty and serious security guarantees. At the same time, Europe is split over how to pay for Ukraine's defense, from frozen Russian assets to new loans. In this video, we break down three questions. Who is really setting the terms of peace? Washington, Moscow, or Kyiv? Is Europe backing Ukraine or quietly pushing it towards surrender? And how much will money, not values, decide what peace looks like? Let's start in Brussels. After a meeting of EU defense ministers, Kaja Kallas gives an unusually blunt warning. She says there is one aggressor and one victim in this war, Russia and Ukraine, and that Europe's job is to support the victim and not reward the aggression. But when journalists ask her about the latest peace talks led by the United States, she says what many in Eastern Europe fear.
Yes, I'm afraid that all the pressure will be put on the weaker side, because that is the easier way to stop this war when Ukraine surrenders. But this is not in anybody's interest.
In her words, that would mean Ukraine must make concessions, and that this is not in the interest of Ukraine, the European Union, or global security. Kallas points to a basic rule in the UN Charter: borders cannot be changed by force. If Russia is allowed to keep land it seized, she warns, other countries will copy this model.
In this war, there is one aggressor and one victim. Our job is to do all we can to support the victim and not reward the aggression. The goal is to have a just and durable peace, not a deal that lays ground for next war.
This is not just rhetoric, it's Kallas publicly challenging the way the peace process is being structured and where the pressure is going. Now to the other side of this story, the American plan. Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, has become the central go-between. Over the weekend, he meets Ukraine's delegation in Florida. Next, he heads to Moscow to see Vladimir Putin. During his Paris visit, Zelensky and Macron dial into this process. They speak directly with Witkoff and with other European leaders, trying to keep everyone aligned. According to French and Ukrainian readouts, the original U.S. peace plan had 28 points and was criticized for asking too many concessions from Kyiv. After pressure from Ukraine and its European allies, it's cut down to 19 points. We still don't know the exact text of these points. What we do know from Zelensky's own words, the territorial questions are the most complicated, and Ukraine feels strong political and diplomatic pressure from many directions.
Зараз особливі дні, коли дійсно багато може змінитись, причому щодня. Вчора були перемовини української делегації в Америці. Завтра, як ми всі знаємо, представник президента Сполучених Штатів буде в Росії. Ми дуже стараємось закінчити цю війну. І треба закінчити її достойно.
Behind diplomatic language, that word dignity is doing a lot of work. It's a polite way of saying not at any price. In Paris, Zelensky and Macron try to draw their red lines in public. Macron's position is clear. Only Ukraine can decide about its territory in any peace deal. That means no one in Washington, Brussels, or Moscow can trade away Ukrainian land over Kyiv's head. Zelensky, speaking mostly in Ukrainian, lists his own priorities. First, defending independence and sovereignty. Second, strong security guarantees so there is no third invasion by Russia. And third, making sure Russia is not rewarded for its aggression. He describes how the war has changed in almost 4 years. More drones, more missiles, more attacks on cities like Dnipro and Kyiv. He openly admits Russia still has local advances at the front, but stresses the huge Russian losses and says the real issue is not kilometers of land, but the human cost and the need for reliable protection after the war.
L'Ukraine est la seule qui peut discuter de territoire. Ce sont les siens, reconnus par le droit international, et elle est souveraine. Quand on parle de garanties de sécurité, elles ne peuvent être discutées ou négociées sans que les Ukrainiens, dont c'est le territoire, soient autour de la table, et sans que les Européens et l'ensemble des alliés de la coalition des volontaires soient autour de la table, puisqu'il s'agit des garants et puisqu'il s'agit aussi de la sécurité du territoire européen.
So, on paper, the message is no one will force Ukraine to give up land. The question is whether the private talks match this public promise. While diplomats argue over points and maps, another fight is about money. Kallas reminds EU ministers that Europe has already provided over 187 billion euros to Ukraine in various forms of support. But future funding is not guaranteed. The European Commission has proposed using profits from frozen Russian state assets, the so-called reparations loan, to fund Ukraine over several years. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen calls this the most effective option. The problem? Some countries, especially Belgium, are pushing back. Belgium hosts a large share of those Russian assets and worries about legal risks and financial stability. Its prime minister warns that rushing ahead could even harm the chances of a future peace deal. Kallas strongly disagrees. She argues that Russia clearly owes reparations, that the risks should be shared among EU states, and that failing to act would signal weakness, not only to Moscow, but also to Washington. For her, a multi-year funding plan is a game changer that would tell Putin he cannot simply outlast the West.